I'm not familiar with the concept of allotments, as they do not, as such, exist in America. So I'm wondering how that works.
The allotment that I've got is a small parcel of land that I pay rent on per annum, and to get it I had to sign up through the Ripon Allotment Society, and I waited for a year or two because more and more people now are getting more interested in it. The size of mine is actually a half plot, so the plot's been divided into two. It's enough for me. It's 9 metres by 14 metres roughly, although it's triangular on one side, so it goes a bit wider than that. If I don't look after it, I think I get what's called a yellow card or a yellow letter, which warns me that I'm not looking after my allotment enough, and if I don't do something, then I will get a red letter and be asked to leave and give up my plot. Well, a lot of the allotments, you can actually walk through the allotments and see what other people are growing. So in England, for those without greenhouses or any sort of cover, there'll be the usual crops, that often it's potatoes, onions, beans, tomatoes, generally under cover, leeks, and some people go into the traditional cut flowers like dahlias with sweet peas and some fruit bushes. But I've tried to go away from the traditional allotment of rows of different crops. I do practice a sort of crop rotation where you're not always planting the same crop in the same place for annual crops. On mine, I've tried as much as possible to go for minimal care. So I've developed it over the 6 years. I'm trying to develop it so that I spend as little time as possible on it for the maximum gain, because I'm working full time as well. So what do I grow on mine? When I inherited it from the previous owner, it was a bare plot with the exception of one bed. When I inherited it, it had an established asparagus bed and globe artichokes. And it had a few leftovers from the previous owner, and the odd cabbage, and I think there were some parsnips that had gone to seed, but it was basically a blank canvas. I had some ideas at the beginning. When I started 6 years ago, the things that had been influencing me around that time in my life were permaculture, edible woodlands or forest gardens. I'm a very good friend who's a willow grower and weaver, and I wanted to do something quite creative to reuse as much as possible within the garden system itself. So that had influenced me. I didn't want to do straight lines, and I didn't want to be traditional. I think it started off in the beginning by drawing out plans. The first year I measured out the plot reasonably accurately and drew a template on paper, which I've copied over the years. So that's 6 years I've been doing it now. And I started to put down the main structure of paths. I grew a living willow dome, so that was a major thing because that was going to be a permanent fixture. I had to make sure that that was in a place that wasn't going to move. Really, really enjoy grafting apple trees. So over the years, I've probably done about 80 apple trees. Sold some of those, quite a lot of those, and then I have 30 remaining on the allotment, which I've pruned into shapes so that I can get as many of them as possible in. So that's the permanent planting, and then around that I'll just do annual planting. Potatoes are very good for turning the soil over. Beans I like. Anything that I can use in the kitchen, chutneys, jams. I've got some fruit trees, if I can get to the soft fruit, if I can get to them before the pigeons. So where I'm going next, so I've got the permanent structures, I've got the fruit, I've got the permanent vegetables, and so now I'm going into cut flowers. So I'm creating areas where I'm growing herbaceous flowers that I can use for cutting or for herbal plants. And the structure, as I'm building the structure now, I'm reusing the willow dome. So as that grows each year, when I cut it down in January back to the basic structure, I have very long wands of, it's viminalis, very long wands of willow, which I'll then keep and use to make edges to define each area that I'm working on. I don't use sprays, so there are weeds, so I hand weed, but I don't want to spray the weeds. I don't want to spray the pests because I want it all to be in balance. And what I've noticed as I leave the green fly, which attack the apple trees early in the season, but then I've noticed that the number of ladybirds and lacewings flourishes. The allotment has a competition each year about the best plot. But when I look at the categories that they're judging it by, I don't know that my plot, because it's so different from the traditional one, would ever achieve what they're looking for. But I keep telling myself to not to aim towards that, because that's not, I don't want to do it for the award. I want to do it because it's something I enjoy creating, and all the reactions are very good.